bad news. I was only able to do 2 videos this week. The good news? I was able to be a part of 4 book discussions. Hey everyone, I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem, and this is the weekly reading roundup for the week ending August 11th, 2025. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. I am a composer, now also a booktuber. You can find my music in The Wheel of Time Season 2, His Dark Material Season 3, and the newly released The Hills of Tenchiko, the featured song in The Wheel of Time Season 3, Episode 6. Today's reading roundup time, everyone. Happy Tuesday, if you're watching this when it comes out. I hope you're doing well. I hope you've had a wonderful week. I've had a pretty roller coaster of a week, and I'll get to that in a little while. But, I did get a chance to read some great books. So if you like this kind of video, please like and subscribe. And now, on to the books as always. First, I want to mention a book that I got a chance to finish this week. And this one is part of a read-along, Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, Book 2, by Tad Williams, Stone of Farewell. Now, I had mentioned in a previous video how high I was on the Dragonbone chair. It's a first book in a series. It's classical fantasy. It was written in the 80s. So it was a precursor for The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb, The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, and of course, most famously, A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. So for a prototypical book, what did I think? Well, I loved the first one. I thought that the coming-of-age story of Simon Mooncalf was very interesting. I felt like him being kind of more of an absent-minded protagonist, a very unlikely protagonist who has his head in the clouds, was a really nice touch. I love the world building. I thought that the characterization was fantastic. And I was like, I wonder how book 2 will be, because it's been a very divisive book for a lot of people. Stone of Farewell oftentimes ends up being a book that people either love or they just very much dislike. You know, I was watching Josh from Red Fury Books, and he had mentioned how much he disliked how many POVs there were in this. And you're not just looking at things through Simon's viewpoint, but you're kind of scattered all over the place. All the characters are scattered. I've also spoken with other people who have mentioned that this one was far better than the first one. So what did I feel about it? Well, I gotta say, I think I fall in the latter rather than the former. I mean, there's something about this book that really screams magic to me. What Simon goes through, he starts to become a little bit more of the person that I imagine he's going to grow into Green Angel Tower, the final book in the series. But you can see this is a transitional book. It's a setup book for that final book. A lot is happening, but at the same time, it meanders quite a bit. Now, personally, I love slow burn fantasy. I love it when a writer is such a good writer that you don't care if they're walking through the forest for hundreds of pages. You know, for some people that might be considered boring. But for me, I actually don't rely on plot as much as I rely on characters and world building to get my kicks from, book-wise, fantasy book-wise. So I thought this had this in spades. You really get a chance to see, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's mentions of the Scythi realm in this, which if you know, you know. Tad Williams writes it in such a transportive, magical way that I mean, this is some of the best world building I've ever read personally. I just love, and I've read, The Wheel of Time, Song of Ice and Fire and all that. But it's extremely memorable in this book. And you kind of get more insight into Iniluki, the Storm King, and kind of what's to come. So I gotta say, I really thoroughly enjoyed this. Fantastic book, and I think I would rate this 5 stars. I think this was even better for me than the Dragonbone chair, which I loved. The second book I got a chance to dive into has actually been a channel read-along. So I put up a poll, I'm like, hey, I'm going to read this book called Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. It was my first Erik Larson book, but I'd heard about it from my father-in-law. He had mentioned, hey, do you want to read a book about the Chicago World's Fair, a historical novel? Not a historical fiction novel, but a historical novel. That reads like a fiction novel, if that makes sense. So this takes place around the Chicago World's Fair, but at the same time, there's America's first serial killer just a couple blocks away, luring people into this crazy building he's constructed. This is real, so you see the parallel stories. Somebody who's building, helping to build a World's Fair, and another one who's basically tearing it down. Fascinating stuff. We are collectively really at people are reading at their own pace, but I kind of figured, we read a quarter of the book per per week. So we are at the 25% mark collectively, about page 100 or so, 115, I think part 1. So I just finished part 1, and I gotta say, reading about H.H. Holmes and kind of his rise as a prominent doctor at the time is fascinating to read, because he has basically all the equipment, the resources, the wealth, and kind of the charm to be able to carry out these mass killings. So really harrowing, really fascinating. I will also say that Burnham, who is one of the lead architects kind of in charge of the project, you get more insight into him as a character, as well as like what ambition drives him to really want to be at the helm of the World's Fair. So really, really great stuff. And as I mentioned, we're reading 100 pages a week. So if you'd like to join along, feel free to join along. We have a Discord channel down below. That's where we are doing our discussions for this. But fascinating look at two very different characters who are in the same location, up to very different things at the same time. So if you want to read about this, please join us. We'd love to have you. Then I got a chance to read 5% of River of Souls, book 5 of Robert McCammon's Matthew Corbett series. This is approaching the halfway mark for us. I'm reading this as a buddy read with Cliff from Cliff's Dark Gems, who I'm linking down below. Wonderful channel, and one of my best friends here on Booktube. And it's always great reading with him, because we both love Matthew Corbett. We both love Robert McCammon. And Matthew Corbett is fast becoming one of my favorite series. It's a historical fiction series. It's got horror elements. It takes place around, the turn of the 18th century, is that? Yeah, like the early 1700s. I don't know too much about what is going to happen in this particular book, but Matthew has already found himself in a very precarious situation, as he often does. And I'm curious, because the events of book 4, you kind of get more insight into his foil, his antagonist for the series, which is what is starting to be looked at, and you finally get to meet him. And that was very harrowing to read. It was also very interesting. The world is opening up a lot wider, so I'm very excited to see kind of like where this is going to go from here. So we're reading this very slowly, but we're going to read this over the course of the month. And any time with Matthew Corbett is always a good time. And I also started and got about 12% in House of Chains, book 4 of Malazan Book of the Fallen. Now, I'm actually reading this on Kindle, because the typeface on this is pretty small, and it's always hard to read out of mass market paperbacks. I didn't realize this when I bought them. So I've been reading that on my Kindle Scribe, which is much easier to kind of digest. But what do I think about this book so far? 12% in already. That is the fastest I've been reading a Malazan book, because I read that in like a day or two. I'm loving it. I know this one is more divisive for people, and I'm not quite sure why. I haven't really gotten too much insight into why some people don't like this as much. I imagine it's because after the heroic events, the epic events of Memories of Ice, this feels a bit more contained. Right now we're following Karsa Orlong and kind of his brethren, and how he basically fights, kills, and maims his way through villages and stuff like that. Feels like the start of a kind of almost like a different sub-arc in the Malazan series. So I'm usually a pretty discerning reader when it comes to fantasy. I don't like everything I read, but for some reason Malazan is just hitting it for me, hitting the spot. So I don't know where this is going to go. Maybe it slows down drastically and people are like, oh, this is just not quite as good as the other books. And that might be so, but right now, I'm having a blast with this. I don't know if I would, rank it as high as Memories of Ice or Dead House Gates, which is my favorite of the 4 so far. But I am really enjoying this much more than I expected to. So I'm going to definitely continue on the train with that. And then the last thing that I got a chance to read was actually something on audio, my friends. Oh, yes. Sound the bells. Confetti in the air. I can finally do a little bit of audio, but I seem to only be able to pay attention to nonfiction reads. So I decided to read The Thinking Machine. This book is very interesting because it kind of follows the life and times of Jensen Huang, who was the creator of the microchip, transistor microchip that led to the creation of NVIDIA, and kind of their track record and how it's going to, play a role in this AI revolution as we are starting to see now. So Really fascinating guy, and I just want to learn more about the world around me. So I did want to read a little bit about that, and I was able to get through 20% of the book. Now I got to say about this one, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, but don't want a dry, boring biography, this one reads like a novel, which is really cool. It really paints the picture of things as he's going through it. So you almost kind of feel like you're in the room with him. I think this was a brilliant way of expressing not only what made Jensen such a force in the tech industry in the 80s, 90s, and up to present day. But also, what was going on in the climate at the time in Silicon Valley. So really fascinating stuff. And yeah, definitely check that out. I'm linking all the books that I've talked about here, down below, as always. So let's talk a little bit about what I'm going to continue to read. So easy, quick section here. I'm basically going to try to read them all. Right now, I'm feeling very, I just can't stop thinking about House of Change. So I'm definitely going to make this a priority this week. I am also going to make our channel read-along a priority, Devil in the White City, and read another 25% of it. I think taking my time with it has actually been really nice. I've been thinking a lot about that. I don't want to blaze through books. I want to give a little bit of time for things to marinate. So I'm really glad I'm doing that. And it's something that I've kind of put in the old toolbox there that maybe that's the best way to read these things. So that is what I'm going to read. And then continue with Matthew Corbett, Thinking Machine just in the background. And I'm also going to start To Green Angel Tower Part 1. So I keep forgetting if this one's called Siege or Storm, but I'm going to put it up here because it hasn't arrived at my doorstep just yet. But, I'm very excited to continue the story of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn to its conclusion. So that's going to be really fun, kind of start diving into that a little bit. But it's been really nice. I've been trying to take 2 hours to read every day. Just away from the screens, no more doom scrolling, hopefully, and try to get more reading time away from just the social media madness. So that's kind of the idea there. Let's talk a little bit about channel updates. So we are 1,311 subscribers, and we got a little bit of a bump because of a couple things that happened on the channel this week. So as I mentioned, I did 2 videos. I did my reading roundup, which comes out on Tuesday. On Thursday, I put up a July wrap-up video, which was really a fantasy frenzy video because I read basically all fantasy in July. Talked a little bit about each book, kind of what I liked about them, what I didn't like about them. If you want to check it out, you could check that out up here as well. And then I got a chance to be on some great discussions. Now, a couple of these are not out yet, but I will mention them so you can kind of keep apprised for them. And I'll also make a community post when those are out. I think they should be out this week or next week or something like that. So the first one I want to talk about is one that's out already. And that is on the Dusty Wheels channel. That is kind of a Wheel of Time YouTube channel that is a kind of an official one. It was really an official one for breaking news, for having actors and the showrunner Rafe Judkins when the show was out on for interviews and stuff. I got a chance to be, I was honored to be a guest on a couple times, and I got to be on a third time here. I got to talk with Matt and the crew. I got a chance to chat with Lauren from Unraveling the Pattern, and yeah, it was just a really nice discussion as we got a chance to gear up for What Idol. So what is What Idol? It's the Wheel of Time Idol, kind of like American Idol, where people submit covers of popular songs with Wheel of Time lyrics or popular Wheel of Time songs with different lyrics, kind of parodies and stuff like that. But man, people go all out on these. I mean, some of the most insane productions, like there's one from a previous year where one guy, Alex Sayers, who actually played guitar on the Wheel of Time season 2 and 3, I believe. He did all these different instruments, percussive stuff. He had 20 instruments going on, and he recorded himself over and over again. And they had a singer, and it was unreal. So the level of care and dedication people put to this is just fantastic. And I got to see a couple Wheel of Time Hills of Tanchico renditions, which is really, kind of surreal. It's I just write this stuff. I don't know where it's gonna go, and for people to take it and run with it. It's just a dream come true. And in fact, I'm going to link this video down below because I think everyone has to see this. Wadapella, which is kind of like an a cappella Wheel of Time group, did a choir version of the Hills of Tanchico, with 20 voices or something like that. Like, they recorded these things separately, put it all together, mixed it, did a really professional job. And the video is hilarious in all the allusions to the hills of Tenshik. If you know, you know. It's very cleverly done and beautifully done. So if you want to check that out, definitely check that out. I mean, I was floored when they debuted that on What Idol. I just didn't know what to say. It was like, holy shit, like, I just didn't know what to say, you know. It's like, yeah, it's very humbling. Very humbling. And yeah, I just really, anytime I get a chance to connect with the fans is great. And the fact that they like what I do is even better, you know. And then I got a chance to be on a discussion with Jake from Nerd Level Rising and legendary author Jenny Wirtz. Now, this one's going to be out in a little bit. I'll keep you posted, as I mentioned. And that was a discussion of probably the most criminally underrated book of all time. And I mean that in any genre. The Heaven Tree by Edith Pargeter. This is a omnibus collection that we have here. So it's 3 novels in the trilogy. But we talked about The Heaven Tree, the first novel. And we are going to be reading one of these a month. But I gotta say, like, to say this is underrated is an understatement. Because Edith Pargeter is a new, like, I just feel like I'm going to want to read all her works after reading this. Think about the prose of, like, Jenny Wirtz in terms of, or Guy Gavriel Kay, you know, just beautiful writing, words that just cascade upon each other. But then the characterization of, like, a John Steinbeck, very grounded, very, like, earthy, real, and a protagonist and an antagonist that do things that you wouldn't expect them to do, and presenting themselves in a more realistic light. This is about a guy who's trying to help build a church in the year 1200. Sounds a little like Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett, doesn't it? But it's from the artist's perspective, and you see a deference to art and the creative process in a way that I've never seen before in a book. And Jenny Wirtz, you know, she is a beacon of light in terms of shining a light on the creative process and what's involved, the sacrifice, you know, kind of the moral, spiritual identity that one associates as an artist or as a creator to what they do. And this is very much explored in this book. Duty, sacrifice, you know, oh man, beautiful, beautiful themes explored in this. So definitely check it out if you have not. I will shout this one from the rooftops because I really feel more people need to hear about it. And I one of my new goals on the Booktube space is to also highlight not only the books that we all know about in the Booktube sphere, but also ones that people need to hear about. You know, I want people to read good books, and I will do whatever I can in any big or small way to highlight those on my little channel here. The next book discussion that we got to do, so I got to do quite a bit, is a discussion of the wonderful Dr. Fantasy himself, Philip Chase's novel, While Darkness Gathers. I got to discuss this with Jake from Nerd Level Rising and Tom from Tom Orange. It was great to meet him finally after admiring his channel for years, and we got a chance to dive in a little deep into Philip Chase's sequel to his Edan trilogy, and my favorite cover, I would say. I think it's my favorite cover because it's all of his covers are great, but this one is just something about it. The color scheme, beautiful. It's a lot shorter also than his previous novels. The other ones were like 600 to 800 pages. This one is just shy of 300, I think. And yet Philip packs a punch in this. I mean, he explores a lot of interesting themes in it about motherhood, about duty, about sacrifice, about identity. What happens when the big war is over? How do the characters pick up the pieces? This takes place 16 years after the events of Return to Edan, which was the final book in the Edan trilogy. I gotta say, this was, you know, I was amazed at how much Philip puts into this book while never feeling rushed. You know, and you still feel like there's stakes. You know, it's not just like a wrap-up. It's not an epilogue to the previous book, but it still has a story of its own merit. So we got a chance to dive into that, and that will be up at some point, I think, on Jake's channel. But again, I'll keep you apprised when that happens. Hey, y'all. Just doing a quick cut in here. The other live stream that I'd wanted to be a part of, and I was planning to be a part of, was the Three Swords Along discussion of The Stone of Farewell, Book 2 of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. Unfortunately, I was unable to join as I had to attend a celebration of life service for one of my best friends' mom, who sadly passed away about a week ago. So, you know, it was very important I attended that, and I just wasn't able to make the timing work, unfortunately. But I am leaving the link in the description in case you want to check it out. It was a fabulous discussion with Aaron from Booked and Busy, Dr. Fantasy himself, Philip Chase, Gavin Reeds, Elliot Brooks, a fantastic, all-star cast of booktubers. So definitely check it out below if you'd like. So let's talk a little bit about what we are going to have on the channel this week. So reading Roundup on Tuesday on this new schedule. Thursday, I'm trying to decide if it's going to be the top 5 or 10 because I don't want to dilute this list too much. But they are going to be the authors I haven't read yet, but I plan to. So the way I'm going to do this is authors I haven't read yet, a little bit about them, about their work, and then where I'm going to start. And I basically want to use this as a discussion video because I want to open this up. Some of you may have read these authors and you might have very strong opinions on where I should start. And that always helps the channel, right? Because if you think about it, then I can do content related to that. For people who have not read it, they can read alongside me and we can do either official channel read-alongs or we could do something more casual, informal. So it just allows for more discussion to happen around those authors and kind of like where should we start, either collectively or individually if you want to follow along. So that's going to be the video on Thursday. And then Saturday, I'm going to do another video essay because it seems like people are clamoring for video essays. And I want to make sure I give the people what they want. Saturday, it's going to be, is it worth reading series that are incomplete? Now, of course, the main contenders are George R. R. Martin and his Song of Ice and Fire, Patrick Rothfuss and the Kingkiller Chronicle, Scott Lynch and the Gentleman Bastard series with Lies of Lamora. There's also many others. And I kind of want to dive into that because I think a lot of people say, I won't read it till it's complete. Even when an author has a track record of writing very consistently, like Orion Cahill, The Bound and the Broken, writing a new novel every year, or Christopher Rocchio, who is now finally completing his Sun Eater series. I thought it warranted a discussion like, should we wait to binge through a series, or is it better to kind of give the author the support early on when they need it and to ensure that more books get made? Or are the books so good that it's worth reading even if they're not complete? So I thought that would be a fun discussion video. That will be coming out on Saturday. So let's talk a little bit about the music and life stuff. So I had a new song release. This song is called The Meaning of Life. It's available on all digital platforms. If you like the Beatles, late 60s psychedelic kind of music, psychedelic pop, I should say, with a live string section and myself on vocals and piano and guitar and bass. I had a drummer, David Myers, who used to play in my old band who played. And if you want to hear something like that with some cool psychedelic backward textures and stuff, talking a little bit about some of the stuff I learned in a 10-day silent retreat about the impermanence of life and why, the meaning of life is ultimately what we give it. But this is a collection of things I learned through meditation, through life experience. And I wanted to share that with people. So you could check that song out below. I would love for you to hear it, save it, share it. It always helps somebody who is a composer or a songwriter like myself get the word out. And it always starts with one-to-one recommendations. So if you like it, please feel free to share. A good friend of ours and actually one of Linda's best friends, Linda rushed her to the hospital and she had to have emergency heart surgery. So, Linda was at her bedside basically 24/7. Her and her friends were rotating out, and I was kind of taking care of Linda so she could take care of her friend. And it was just a really harrowing thing because we actually didn't know if her friend was going to pull through. It was that dire at one point. And so, it was a very heavy week. And but the good news is she was able to get through the surgery okay, and she's in recovery now. And it was kind of a miracle, honestly. We didn't know what was going to happen. And we just found this out yesterday. So she's kind of got a road ahead of her in terms of recovery, but at least she's out of the danger zone now. So very grateful for that. We'd been really, praying for her, rooting for her, hoping she'd pull through. So that was really great. But yeah, definitely a heavy week. Reading has been a good escape for me, I think, this week as well. So, well, how was your week? I would love to know from you, what did you read? Anything interesting happened to you this week? Let's celebrate you for a moment. I love chatting with you about books, about life. We all make friends here, so feel free to leave it in the comments, in the Discord, wherever you so choose, and let's chat together. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. Please like and subscribe, always helps out the channel. Hit up the notification bell if you want to be, apprised of when the next video comes out. And be good to yourselves, be good to each other. I will always see you, as always, on the next video. Take care.